It's Connecticut's newest learning curve.
If Connecticut can't get their kids back into the classroom safely, no state can.
Students, parents, and teachers all bracing themselves for a school year unlike any other.
Encouraged by a low infection rate, the governor saying it's time to get back to the classroom.
I actually believe that you are in a good place because your baseline is very low.
There's no replacement for this.
School districts across the state working to get a pandemic learning plan in place, but that may be an uphill battle.
We know that these need to be in place, and they're simply not in place.
Being safe is a right. This is why we had to fight.
Parents debating whether their kids are ready.
They're throwing caution to the wind, and they want to use us as lab rats. We're not lab rats.
Masks, social distancing, and hand sanitizer. The new school supplies in a brand new world.
And I wholeheartedly agree she needs a socialization aspect. There's just something so valuable and tangible in the classroom.
Tonight, we're doing the homework to get you the information you need.
If we can get back in September, just a few months of school face-to-face with your friends in person makes an enormous difference.
From the FOX61 School Resource Center, this is your back-to-school study guide.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Erica Arias. Tonight, we're going to be navigating through the long list of considerations for parents, teachers, and students planning to go back to school in the fall. Right now, we know that the COVID-19 positivity rate is still less than 1%, so really good news there. Now, every school district in the state has to come up with a plan for in-school learning, as well as a hybrid model, and also fully remote learning. It is a Herculean task. So we're going to be checking in with school districts all over the state to find out how they're preparing.
Hi, I'm Zania Maldonado here outside Hartford Public High School. Now, the school district here in Hartford allows students in grades pre-K to 9th grade to return back to the classroom 5 days a week, while students in grades 10 through 12 will operate on a hybrid schedule, only returning back to the classroom twice a week. Now, it's a plan Mayor Luke Bronin says is feasible due to the state's low COVID-19 positivity rate, but parents will still have that option to keep their children at home for distance learning as students head back to the classroom Tuesday, September 8th.
I'm Dave Puglisi in Bridgeport, where they have voted to return to school in full for students K through 8, with the high school being a hybrid model. Now, you can find their plan detailed online. It's 45 pages, and the superintendent of schools says that it's enough to help for a smooth reopening, although teachers believe that it could leave them and some students exposed. Students will be back in the classroom on September 8th.
I'm Taylor DiCello in Manchester, where the school district has developed a plan for the 2020-2021 school year for both in-person and hybrid learning. Now, under the school's current plan, they're going to operate at full capacity in person, but should the levels of COVID-19 rise, they're ready to go to a hybrid or a fully remote schedule. Now, students or teachers who have underlying medical conditions are allowed to stay home under any scenario. Right now, the plan is not finalized, though, and there's a Board of Education meeting on August 31st.
Hi, everyone. This is Tony Terzi outside the Claude Chester School here in Groton. And in this community, they voted to adopt a hybrid return to school plan. Groton is the largest school district in New London County. The model would include 2 days of in-person instruction and 3 distance learning days each week. Students with the last names A through M will be in class Mondays and Tuesdays, while students whose last names start with N through Z will attend Thursday and Friday. Parents will have the option to send their kids back to school using the hybrid model, or they can choose to have them educated solely from home, and they can change their mind at any time. In Groton, Tony Terzi, Fox 61 News.
So what will school look like? Well, each district has their own plans aimed at meeting state guidelines. The state's plans came together after receiving input from more than 16,000 students and 23,000 people, like parents and teachers. First, the classroom social distancing will be key. Desks will be moved further apart. They will use extra spaces in school buildings like the gym. Masks will be mandatory for both students and staff for the entire day. Hand washing will be frequent, and schools will have enhanced cleaning. Kids will have to stay with the same classmates throughout the day. But what about the school bus? Your typical school bus has 19 rows, 38 seats, carrying a maximum of 76 students and a driver. That's likely not the case now. In most cases, buses will have to run at reduced capacity so students can sit socially distanced.
Administrators and teachers are navigating a lot of challenges to create a safe environment for our kids. Tonight, we're hearing from them and their reassurances to parents who are still stressed about sending their little ones back into the classroom.
I'm joined tonight by Hartford School Superintendent, Dr. Leslie Torres-Rodriguez. Dr. Torres-Rodriguez, first I just want to say thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I just want to start off by just clarifying for families that are getting ready to head back to school in the Hartford public school system, where the district is right now and what that is going to look like when students do head back September 8th.
So right now we are in what we call the yellow status, and that is equivalent to the external health conditions and related to COVID. And so it is, knowing that there's a moderate to controlled, cases with regard to COVID, we are opening for pre-K through 9th grade, fully in person, of course, with the option for families to opt out to learn remotely. And then for our 10th through 12th graders, we are opening within a hybrid schedule. That means that they're going to, be split up into two groups, and half of them will attend 2 days a week and the other half will attend the other 2 days a week. Of course, if the COVID situation does change in any way, we will have to change the way in which our learning environments look and feel for our students.
And I want to talk about the process of how you all made the determination of the different colors and how the school district will proceed in each of them. Because, I mean, as you know or have seen, there has been some pushback of teachers that are saying, hey, we need to put a pause on this. We're not ready to go back. Talk to me about that process.
Yeah, the process has been informed by a few things. One is the guidance that we have and continue to receive from our state and local health officials and experts. The other element here that's important is our feedback, feedback from our families and from our staff with regard to their options. We know that for families, for example, 41% of our respondents are electing to have in-person instruction. The majority of those, as you can, of the responses have been for remote learning, but we still know that there is a large need that our family has. Of course, we balance everything with our safety and all of the guidance and recommendations that we've been given by the state and the health officials, we are implementing.
And one of the frequent questions that districts have been getting, I believe Hartford included as well, is the ventilation in the schools. How is that being addressed, and how do you ease parents' concerns about that?
Yeah, we continue to do work there. All of our systems they're in the process now of being updated with a higher grade in terms of the filter for the air systems. We did engage a group of environmental engineers, HVAC engineers, so that they can also inform our thinking. The challenge there is that we have facilities that range one in age, Two, in the actual system that they might have. We also know that the weather impacts a lot of these, the way that we respond. And so while we are replacing and upgrading filters throughout the district, we still wanted to get additional guidance. We feel that we are going to be ready with regard to all of the recommendations and the guidance that we have received with regard to, the wearing of the face coverings, the cohorting of students, the disinfecting of our buses, of our classrooms. So lots of guidance that has come. We continue diligently to address the safety concerns.
And you just mentioned cohorting. With going back into the classroom, there is always the possibility that someone could get sick. What are some of those support systems that are in place just in the case that a student or a staff member does test positive?
Yeah, so, we're finalizing our several things. Our contact tracing process and protocol, which relies on quick communication with staff to us. If it is the case with a staff member, also with our families and with our students and with our local health director as well. With regard to students testing positive, this is why the information and the communication is so important with our families, because even before a student does test positive, at the onset of any COVID-like symptom, we would want to know so that we can advise the family and make sure that the family connects with their primary health provider. With regard to staff, we are going to require staff to, on a daily basis, report how they're feeling, any symptoms that they might be having into a web-based application, so that we can have our data readily available with regard to staff as well.
And just quickly, one more question I want to ask before I let you go tonight. In your letter where you're addressing the school community, you also mentioned that as we head back to the classroom, you want to make sure that students are able to continue to learn about systemic racism and the things that are in place that you feel was highlighted by this pandemic. Talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we are being very intentional on two levels. At the staff level, we are engaging in a book study this year that is going to lift for us some shared language around what racial inequity, what those barriers, the systemic barriers that exist. And at the student level, we are going to embed in our curriculum conversations and added knowledge with regard to what do these systems mean? What does it mean when we talk about racial inequity? How to allow students to have voice and advocacy? And then we're going to do the same thing, opportunities for our families to engage in the conversation. It is important for myself, and I know that my Board of Education also, we remain grounded in equity. And so we have to continue in addition to the fact that we have to tend to the pandemic, we still have to make sure that we provide for everyone and those that are also impacted in disproportionate ways. And in our Hartford Public Schools context, those are our children, our students of color, our students that live in high need, high poverty areas. And so we cannot ignore that.
All right, again, Dr. Leslie Torres Rodriguez, I want to thank you so much for joining us again, and thank you for sharing your thoughts.
You're welcome. Take care.
Next, we'll tackle the health and safety of your child. What you should take into consideration when you're trying to decide if you should send your kids back to school or keep them home. When Fox 61's Back to School Study Guide returns.
Okay, 2020 has been a school year like no other. And pretty soon kids are going to be ready to get back to school. And it's going to be a different school year again, given what's happened with COVID. We're trying to do everything we can, kids, to get you back to school safely. I know how much you miss your friends. I know how much maybe even now you're missing your teachers. And parents, I think you have a special appreciation for teachers now that you've been homeschooling your kids, a little bit of Zoom, a little bit of technology. a little bit of parent-teacher work, you know what heroes our teachers are. And finally, for the teachers, look, I understand the anxiety about going back to the classroom. You also know better than anybody that there's nothing better than an in-classroom experience. So we're going to do this cautiously, we're going to do this slowly, we're going to do it with public health first and foremost. But this is a school year. I hope we get it back up and operating. And kids, I can't wait to see the look in your eyes, the smiles on your face, to see your teachers and your classes back again. This is a school year we'll never forget.
Welcome back. I'm Aisha Bo. Many families are faced with the decision of whether to do remote learning in person, or like many districts are opting for a hybrid plan. Well, I spoke with a developmental and behavioral pediatric who says the answer should be based on household circumstances and your child's needs. Here are some of the tips on factors to consider.
It's not one size fits all. It's what's right for each child and right for each family.
That's how Connecticut Children's attending physician in development behavioral pediatrics, Dr. Robert Ketter, says families should approach the upcoming school year amid this pandemic. Dr. Ketter says first think about who your child is, their health and their needs. Do they need the structure of a classroom or good with one-on-one? Any special education accommodations? Or can your child handle wearing a mask all day?
Other things to take into consideration are what it's like at home. If you are a single parent family that is an essential employee, who's going to watch the kids and be able to handle remote learning while you're at work?
If you decide on partial or full in-classroom learning, make sure to have supplies ready and prepare your child for changes and guidelines, especially wearing that mask for a long period. With older kids, Dr. Ketter says, have a talk with them about the expectations and why it's important. For younger children, start practicing with them now.
Pick a fun movie and put it on and see if your child can wear the mask the whole time. And then slowly increase the types of activities. Can you do some chores with the mask on?
For families doing remote learning, have a plan for what device and internet your child will use. Create a space for them to do schoolwork if possible. Ask the child's teacher for ideas on incorporating hands-on learning if needed.
How you can try to use games and play to reinforce the learning activities for younger kids, and for older kids, think about how you can help that child still develop the ability to make a schedule for their day.
And don't forget physical activity and breaks. The good news, Dr. Ketter says, our state numbers continue to look promising, but families should also be ready to react if things change during the school year. Joining us over Skype right now is Dr. David Bannock from UConn Health. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
We get a lot of questions from viewers, and we wanted to see if we can tackle some of them that we have been getting, questions that they are asking some experts and how to deal with this upcoming school season. And I want to start with one from Susan, who wrote, should my child be tested regularly if he is in the classroom for this upcoming school year?
So thanks. That's actually a very good question about testing. So a few thoughts and guidelines on testing. I think when we look at testing in the big picture, the two key points where testing is really needed is going to be if your child does tell you that they're having any symptoms that might be concern for COVID-19, and likewise if they're known to have any exposure, like for instance if the school notifies you that the child has been in close contact with someone who did test positive, then that would be another indication to consider testing. And I think in terms of sort of universal testing of all students at all schools, I think that does pose some challenges. I think some other things to be thinking about for parents is that if your child has any chronic medical conditions that may put them at higher risk for severe disease, or if they're living with someone who has some of those conditions, those might be some special situations where more frequent testing would be considered. But I think those are the kinds of things to discuss with your pediatrician on sort of an individual basis.
All right, and we want to get to one from Lauren here, who also has a question about masks and the school bus. She asked, should my daughter be wearing a mask on the school bus, even if there's social distancing between the seats? And a follow-up question to that is, what is the best type of mask to wear to keep the coronavirus away?
Okay, so great questions about masks. So I think masking is really a critical piece of protecting kids and all of us from coronavirus. So I think wearing a mask as much as can be reasonably done, especially in indoor environments like schools, but also school buses, I think would be a really appropriate thing to be doing. We try to combine all of our different preventive measures like social distancing as well as masking together in order to sort of maximize the amount of protection. As we think about the different types of masks, there's more and more data showing that that certain types of materials are particularly effective. Cotton masks are one material that's been shown to be quite effective in blocking those droplets that can carry the virus that causes COVID-19. And I think the most important aspects of the mask are really to ensure that both they cover the nose and the mouth completely, as well as the fact that they fit comfortably is going to be really critical. That's really going to be what's most helpful in ensuring that the child's going to be wearing the mask and that they're going to be able to wear it for prolonged periods of time in order to protect themselves and others.
And I want to see if we can get one more in here. This one is from Anne, who is saying, how should schools monitor kids entering the classroom every day? Are temperature checks necessary?
So I think doing universal temperature checks, may not be the most effective way to monitor. I think, on an individual basis, each child should be kind of assessed every day before going to school for any symptoms. And if the child does have any symptoms that they're concerned about or that may raise any suspicion, then certainly checking temperature would be appropriate at that point. It's important to remember that fever is just one potential symptom of COVID-19. So if your child is reporting other types of symptoms, then checking their temperature would be appropriate. And just likewise, really discussing with the kids, the importance of reporting that whether or not they have any symptoms or any changes in their health is really critical. And that communication is going to be really important.
All right, very good and useful information there. Dr. David Bannock, again from UConn Health, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Still ahead, COVID-19 and college campuses, how residential life has changed and what local campuses are doing to contain the virus.
Hi, it's Lieutenant Governor Susan Weissowitz. I know that these past few months have been difficult, especially for our students and teachers. As we were all staying safe while staying at home, our kitchens became our classrooms and our backyards became our playgrounds. But despite the challenges of learning from home, our students and teachers stepped up in big ways. Across our state, we saw countless teachers who went the extra mile to help their students with homework and their assignments. And our students worked so hard to complete their work to graduate on time or to start a new grade. We couldn't be prouder of everything you all have accomplished. While learning may look a little bit different this year, I know we will all get through this by working together. For those of you who will be going back to school, I know your friends and teachers miss you and can't wait to have you back. For those who will be learning while at home, keep up the good work, and we can't wait to welcome you back to the classroom soon. But whether our classes are in person or remote, one thing is for sure. Our teachers will continue to be there by your side every step of the way. Good luck this fall with the school year. Thanks so much.
Well, I knew it was going to be different. I knew it wasn't going to be a traditional year here.
It's pretty safe to say Patrick Good will never forget his first semester at UConn. His college experience kicking off with a mandatory COVID-19 test before moving onto campus and a 2-week quarantine before the start of classes.
They carried it out very well. And they were very transparent with the whole process, very, very easy process, very easy to understand.
UConn reducing the on-campus population for the fall semester, not permitting out-of-state students who are only enrolled in online courses to live in university housing.
This is my double, but nobody on campus has a roommate, so there's one person in all these dorms. Plenty of room. Clearly not that many people out. Just cars.
When it comes to meeting new friends, Patrick says students are still finding ways to socialize safely.
I mean, we have to talk with friends. We have to. That's just how it is. We play spike ball. We got masks on. We're 6 feet apart.
And when it comes to enforcement of the rules,
the RAs are floating around, letting us know, just keep your mask on, social distance. Everyone's obeying the rules for the most part. The majority is.
The university taking action against students who are not obeying the rules. Several students already evicted from on-campus housing after throwing a crowded dorm room party.
I like it because they're kicking them off campus before they're kicking everyone else off campus, which is good. It stinks that they got kicked off, but if that's what they got to do to smarten everyone up, so be it.
We're joined right now by UConn President Tom Katsouleas. President Katsouleas, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Ben. It's good to be here.
I want to start off with how's campus looking right now? It's in the middle of a pandemic, students starting to move back. How's the temperature up there at Storrs?
You know, it looks different, but it definitely looks like a college atmosphere. It looks lively. I think the biggest thing you notice is students walking around wearing masks, and they're being overwhelmingly compliant with the requirement that they wear masks at all times on campus. Of course, we moved in about 5,000 students compared to about 12,000 that we normally would have had over the last weekend, and they're in quarantine, so they're only out when they're doing limited types of activities. So it's not as dense, but you know, it looks like a college campus, and on a quiet day.
You know, I want to get right to it. There was a headline that several students tested positive for COVID-19 after an quote-unquote unauthorized gathering. We can call it what it was. It was basically a college party. How are those students reprimanded, and what's going to change going forward? That obviously has to be on the forefront of all minds.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, what happened was that's not exactly how it all went. We actually tested all the students as they arrived over the 4-day period. We had tested 5,000 of them. We expected to have about 1% positives based on Connecticut's overall rate, which would have been about 50. We actually had only 8, and all 8 of those students were then put in, either given an opportunity to go home or go into isolation, and they chose to go into medical isolation. So there was a small group of students that had an unauthorized party without masks in the dormitory, which is what you saw. They were all negative, in fact, and within the day, you know, we had sent them home. And so this is, you know, sort of normal, you might say normal, age-appropriate behavior to have a social gathering in another time and place. But, you know, in this era, it's not something that we can allow to go on because it puts the health and safety of the whole community at risk. So that was unfortunate for them, but they had to go home.
So it seems like Thanksgiving is the timeline for when students will no longer be on campus. What is this fall semester going to look like?
Yeah, so it starts with this 2-week quarantine period, which was prescribed by our medical staff. And so students came in, they got tested, they got a room key, they moved in, and they're in quarantine for 2 weeks. They have some limited activities now. They can do grab and go food delivery. We did an activity on Sunday that was, believe it or not, grab and go tie-dye activity, tie-dye shirts. So this is the 1960s meets 2020. But then on Monday, we start the semester. And so we're gearing up for classes to start on Monday. All of our decisions are guided by the safety and welfare of the faculty, staff, students, and the broader community. So everybody is going to be wearing masks. There's 6 feet of spacing at all times, including in the classrooms. There's redesigned entrance and exit, redesigned dining facilities, new signage, all of that kind of stuff. And we're highly de-densified. So we have about 1/3 of our curriculum in person beginning on Monday, and the rest is online or hybrid. So that's what it will look like.
Lastly here, President Katsouleas, there could be some parents watching us who might have a freshman going up to school for the very first time, or a sophomore, junior, senior heading back. That's nervous at any time for parents to be sending their kids off, but especially during a pandemic. What's your message to those parents getting ready to ship their kids up to Storrs?
Well, we understand that the students and their parents want their sons and daughters to have the social connections that are part of the classic college experience, that intellectual collision with people from different backgrounds, different perspectives. And we're committed to bring that to our students, albeit with accommodations for safety. So we're doing that. We know that the parents want their sons and daughters to be safe. We know they want us to help them achieve their fullest potential and support their hopes and dreams. And that's an awesome responsibility. And speaking for all of the faculty and staff at UConn, we take it incredibly seriously and are privileged to do that. And that's exactly what we're planning to do this semester for them.
From STORS, President Katsouleas, we appreciate your time as always. Best of luck. Thank you.
Take care.
All right, up next, we'll look at how schools are bridging the digital divide. That's when the FOX61 Back to School Study Guide comes right back.
From the FOX61 School Resource Center, this is your Back to School Study Guide.
Joining me virtually is Dr. Verna Ruffin, who is the superintendent for Waterbury Schools. Dr. Ruffin, I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And just to get started, you recently announced a two-part reopening plan. First, if you can just describe what students, teachers, and staff can expect when students return back to school this fall.
Yes, we shared this last week a schedule of what a school day would look like for the student and the teacher and staff upon their return on September 8th, both in person as well as what that would look like in a virtual academy. And what we have is a tentative schedule so that both the in-person student and the online student are going to be receiving instruction from their teachers simultaneously. So they will have one teacher, the same teacher they would normally have if everyone returns in person, but some of the students will be in person and some of the students will be virtual.
And I'm assuming that will be up to the individual family to choose which one they want to do.
Absolutely. We have approximately 40% of our students whose parents said that they are returning in person, and 60% who've chosen the academy, virtual academy.
And I just want to go into the plan of how we got here. I mean, when the announcement was made that students could return to in-person classrooms, districts were faced with the task of figuring out how this is going to work. For Waterbury Public Schools, what did that look like? Did you all receive input from families? Talk to me about how you all came up with this specific plan.
We did. We took our time in really looking at all of the data we were getting. The stats on COVID-19 across Connecticut as well as Waterbury specifically. We had a number of forums with staff members. I led those along with members of my senior cabinet. We also had a number of town hall meetings. We asked questions, we answered questions, we heard what our families and our teachers and our staff were telling us about what was concerning them. Additionally, we had a number of questionnaires to determine if you had to make the decision today, would you choose in person or would you choose the virtual? We also had a questionnaire about the quality of the distance learning and what would be important to our families and our teachers as we continue to develop that online platform. So we did a lot of communication. My most recent one was Friday. And we're going to continue to do that as we learn from all of our stakeholders and create a plan that's going to be best for Waterbury.
And I want to go back to the remote learning. When schools officially closed back in March, I believe, the concern became for a lot of districts of how do we get the proper technology to these families that are going remote now. I understand now it's an option whether they go remote or whether they do in person, but has the district been working on a plan in terms of families that might want to be remote and maybe don't have reliable access to Wi-Fi and a device?
Yes, Waterbury distributed over 8,000 computers to students who said that they needed a computer to be able to do their work at home. We will continue to do that. And even if students choose the virtual academy, we're still going to have our students with their computer in person as well. We believe that the opportunities there give our students an opportunity to engage in remote learning in multiple ways that can assist them in acceleration as well as catching up if that's what they need to do. So the one-to-one computer access for our students and for our teachers is critically important to our plan, and we want to accommodate for that. We've been pleased that Comcast has also offered some free access to Wi-Fi for our families. We've made that available to our families. We've communicated that, and we'll continue to communicate as people are in need of fast speed internet services.
And just quickly, if parents want to see this plan and what that'll look like, I'm assuming the district has it. Do you all have it in some website that they may be able to visit?
Yes, we encourage people to visit our website, our Waterbury Public Schools website frequently. And the entire plan, the latest one, is there, and we'll continue to update and send communications. I just can't stress enough how important it is that everyone accesses current information, accurate information on our website.
All right. Again, Dr. Verna Ruffin joining me via virtually here. We want to thank you so much for your time again.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you, too.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Welcome back. I'm Angelo Bavaro, and we are turning now to the digital divide. For some, starting the school year remotely has been anything but smooth. The switch to hybrid and online models has made technology more important than ever, but not everyone can access those resources. Meet Rita. She's a 6th grader who lives at home with her mom and dad. Meet her classmate James, who also lives at home with his parents. Rita's dad has a job that lets him work from home, and her mom chooses to stay as well. They're in the minority because the Bureau of Labor Statistics says in 64% of families with kids, both parents work. James's dad is an essential worker. He takes the overnight shift at a local grocery store and sleeps during the day. His mom also has a job which helps them pay rent and afford health care. These past few months have affected Rita and James very differently. When their school went online in March, Rita was ready. She got an iPad for Christmas and video chats all the time with her friend. Her family's high-speed internet makes it a breeze. According to a Microsoft study, James and his family are like more than 160 million other Americans who do not have access to broadband. Their computer is pretty old and they use dial-up to get online. Video conferencing with his classmates hardly ever worked, and downloading video took forever. Over the summer, Rita's mom read all of the research on just how important it is for kids Rita's age to spend time with their friends. She organized plenty of socially distant playdates. James hasn't been able to see his friends in months. His family lives in an apartment where there's not a lot of room to socially distance, and the nearest park is several miles away, too far for him and his buddies to walk. This fall, James and Rita's school is letting families choose between in-person classes or virtual learning. Rita's parents are worried about her getting sick, so they're going to keep her at home. James's parents are worried too, but with their jobs and no childcare, keeping them at home is not really an option for them. Rita's parents don't want her to fall behind, so they're going to hire a private tutor. James's parents would love a tutor, but can never afford one. They do want to help James with his homework, but with their work schedules, there's hardly... Rita and her family are excited about the upcoming school year and plan to make the most of the situation. James is worried about the fall, and he and his family are not sure how they're going to make it work. Meet Benjamin Williams and David Oyanadel. They're the co-founders of Arsum Technology, which is based in Manchester.
What we do is we are a custom software development company, and we provide vendors and partners augmented and virtual reality applications. Primarily, we work in the education industry.
We are talking about augmented reality applications that can be accessed right from your smart device, like this.
Hello, I'm Benjamin Franklin.
It's a way to bring something that is not in our current reality, something from our computer vision that we can actually pop up so we can add some information. So add something that is not visible there, but through technology we can make it pop up.
Arsum developed this augmented reality mobile app for Hartford that provides a one-of-a-kind history lesson about Mark Twain.
Hey, Hartford, did you know that I'm a border ruffian from the state of Missouri, but a Connecticut Yankee by adoption?
What we did is we brought Mark Twain to life. If a user were to go to the Hartford Public Library, where the Mark Twain statue is, pan their mobile application up to the statue, instantaneously you would see Mark Twain come to life.
It's technology that the co-founders say enhances the learning experience for students.
The mobile device, plus their course content, plus the 3D elements and augmented reality become part of that ecosystem of inputs that actually get into the brain to make it more memorable. And at the end of the day, education, if it's more memorable to the person sitting in that classroom, the retention rates are higher.
And in this age of distance learning and homeschooling, David and Benjamin say augmented reality technology presents endless opportunities.
Eventually, why not? You could take this to the real world, kind of go on a field trip individually, and the teacher could leave trails and tricks and things that you could find along the way. If you're trying to determine, for example, maybe in a conservation class or unit, to go and look at different things, but sometimes you don't remember the particulars of a particular animal. So you could bring it up to life, a particular animal in augmented reality, or a plant or a flower, right in the field where you are. You don't have to come back to the computer.
When we talk about the homeschooling market, it's not just the student. Everybody needs to be, because everybody's under the same problem, right? Learning is a family problem. So everybody has to be engaged in working together to get through this COVID, and augmented reality can really be that tool.
Still ahead here, back to school shopping forever changed. The items that should be on your kids' list. But before we head to break, let's take a look at some of your feedback on the FOX61 School Resource Center Facebook group.
Usually this time of year we're kind of excited because we know the kids are starting school very soon, and whereas we may be excited as parents, we know that there's normally a little bit of anxiousness from our kids. This year, with everything else going on in the world and a big, large question mark looming over every school in Connecticut, that anxiousness has been multiplied. What to do if your kids are feeling it? We have some tips. Christina Dufour deals with stress for a living. As a creator of the Carnelian Connection, she teaches companies, coworkers, kids, and anyone in between how to manage feelings, including anxiety, which these days... There's a lot of anxiousness going on.
Yeah, there sure is.
Pandemic, coronavirus, distance learning. These are terms each parent is forced to deal with when it comes to addressing the upcoming school year. But what about your kids?
However you're responding to your anxiety, it's not exact, but it's very likely that your child may respond similar.
So she teaches them how to relax before anxiety takes over in the house. Her advice? Pay attention.
Pay attention to how we're perceiving things. And so one technique you could use is to choose your perception. Choose to look at this as an adventure. Choose to understand, that life is uncertain, and the environment, having no control, not having certainty about everything that's going to happen, is the nature of life itself.
Meaning, take out the things you can't control and turn the rest into a challenge. Dufour suggests keeping a log of positive moments in a world that, well...
things are not normal.
That doesn't mean ignoring the world around you. It means accepting it for what it is and finding the good together, and even learning a little extra gratitude in the process.
If you did a practice of gratitude right? And you either sat with your child and you could be very playful and fun with it and kind of make it a song. I'm grateful for the trees, I'm grateful for the smile, I'm grateful that we had dinner, and so on and so forth. You could kind of make it like that. You could write it down, as I do in my journal every day. And what this does is it opens up a part of the brain that is connected to compassion, connected to optimism. And it's a way for the brain to make a habit of looking for those things.
Because, as she'll tell you, if you want to be less anxious, focus on the things that can make you less anxious.
And what you practice, becomes very much a part of who you are.
One thing Dufour also says is don't look at this anxiousness as a bad thing. Don't put a negative connotation to it. You know your children are experiencing it. You're experiencing it as well. Find the positive and work together as a family.
Back to school for many means back online and then back to the classroom. And for many parents, that combined model is making back to school shopping even more expensive this year. In fact, the National Retail Federation reports for the first time ever, back to school and back to college sales will top $100 billion combined. They estimate that the average family is going to put down $789 to get their kids K through 12 ready. 59% of parents surveyed by PayPal plan to spend more on tools and tech items to help kids connect remotely. And they found that a whopping 81% are planning to spend more money on safety supplies like sanitizer, face masks, goggles, and gloves. There is some good news for teachers. Target is offering an extra 15% off school supplies. Teachers can sign up for the Target Circle, all for free now through Saturday. It's time to close the book on the Back to School Study Guide, but that doesn't mean we're done learning. For much more information right in your reach, be sure to download the Fox 61 News app. You can point your phone to the screen for access to the Fox 61 School Resource Center Facebook group for more support.